preposterous. It's simply preposterous, Reed exclaimed, his tentacles quivering in agitation. The other scientists in the university lab murmured in agreement. They had just witnessed a human spacecraft perform maneuvers that no Zarnian vessel could match. The ship spun, accelerated, and changed trajectory so rapidly that if a Zarnian crew had tried those stunts, they'd have been turned into puddles of goo plastered against the bulkheads. How is it possible? Demanded Professor Klax, her large black eyes blinking in consternation. The human ship clearly exceeded safety limits for inertial damping and should have torn itself apart. Do humans simply not understand physics? It seems not, replied Red. I have analyzed all available data on human technology, and their brute force engineering techniques defy all logic and reason. They utilize materials in ways no sane being would consider, with total disregard for stress factors and energy expenditures. The lab filled with distressed clicks and warbles as the xenoscientists tried to comprehend the human mystery. Ever since first contact 100 cycles ago, humans had proven perplexing, reckless even. The only explanation is that the laws of physics simply do not apply to them, Klax finally declared. Watch that sequence again, where they altered trajectory by detonating explosives inside their engine nozzles. By all accounts, that should extinguish the drive flames, not boost acceleration. It's as if reality itself makes allowances for insane human ideas. Rhett waved his tentacles in a gesture of resignation. As much as it pains me to admit, you may be right, Professor. The humans seem capable of getting away with sheer scientific heresy. Our models cannot account for their successes. At that moment, an important message arrived on the lab's communications portal. There was an opportunity for a Zarnian scientist to serve as part of a cultural exchange program aboard a human exploration vessel. Volunteers were needed. Klax turned to Red. Here's our chance to solve the human enigma. We must have one of our own work alongside them. It may be hazardous duty, but in the name of science, we must learn their secrets. 3 cycles later, Rhett found himself being escorted through the corridors of the human ship, UNS Discover, by a cheerful human named Jim. Other humans they passed smiled or waved in greeting. Rhett shivered as his protective suit adjusted to match the humid, oxygen-rich human habitat. Such an unstable atmosphere, and the deck moves underfoot constantly. I fear this entire vessel is structurally unsound. Jim laughed. Oh, she just likes to shake, rattle, and roll. But the old girl hasn't failed us yet. Built solid, this one. He showed Rhett to the drive control room, where Chief Engineer Kaminsky was tinkering with thick bundles of cables and worn, scarred equipment. She grinned at Rhett. Welcome aboard, Squidly. Excuse the mess, just making some tweaks before next burn. These babies run sweet when I'm done with them. She rapped her knuckles against a huge, asymmetric cylinder sprouting with pipes and gauges. Rhett stared, appalled at the primitive jury-rigged machinery. By all accounts, this vessel should never have left port. Over the next few cycles, Rhett studied human engineering techniques with increasing distress. The core drive seemed to work on brute momentum, building up enormous inertial forces barely contained by magnetic fields. The plasma channels looked ready to rupture at any moment. In the repair methods, Kaminsky often repaired fissures in structural beams using hand-wielded metal deposition devices, slopping on new material with no regard for molecular adhesion factors. During one meal in the chaotic human commissary, Rhett finally confronted Chief Engineer Kaminsky. Pardon my bluntness, he gurgled through his voter, but by all sound scientific reasoning, your operational techniques should reduce this vessel to fragments. Kaminsky laughed raucously. I'll let you in on a little human secret. My calamari friend. Our ships are crazy kludges that only hold together because the universe knows better than to mess with human ingenuity. The other humans at the table pounded the surface in approval. You squids may calculate everything down to the last decimal, Kaminsky continued with a wink. But then if one little factor changes, kaboom, your models explode. We don't even bother with models. If it might work and no one's tried it yet, we just slap something together and see what happens. Reed quivered in dismay and shock. But such reckless disregard for standards could lead to utter disaster. Hey, you're still alive so far, ain't ya? Kaminsky replied, gulping the last of her drink and letting out an explosive belch. Anyway, break's over. Gotta reinforce those plasma conduits before they blow out. Wanna help spackle some serum steel on them. She headed off toward engineering, whistling cheerfully. Rhett sat numbly for several moments before following her out. This was sheer madness, and yet he could not deny the sheer audacity of it was also thrilling. These humans simply did not comprehend limits or refused to believe in them. Over the next cycles, Rhett found himself a grudging but integral part of the human crew. He helped apply emergency insulation patches, convert waste gases into fuel blends, and rebuild fried sensor arrays. And despite working under conditions no ethical Zarnian scientist would tolerate, Rhett made a startling revelation. Not only did the human systems function, by any sane standard, they should not function. They produced more energy than they consumed, defied entropy through sheer illogic. Finally, Rhett understood, whether through luck, pluck, or blatant disregard of accepted principles, sometimes crazy ideas worked precisely because no one else would try them. Humans succeeded through a combination of inspiration, desperation, intuition, and ingenuity. They were engineers of the absurd. When at last Rhett returned home to Zarn, he submitted a lengthy report to the University Research Council. But his tentacles quivered with mirth and disbelief as he articulated the concluding statement. It seems that humans do indeed violate the laws of physics, and the laws of physics are just fine with that.